All right, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're very excited to be able to share such great information with you and all the Airbnb hosts that are tuned into this live webinar. Our topic today is automated Airbnb pricing. It's a must-have for all Airbnb hosts, hands down. It helps you save time and earn more money with your short-term rentals, which is what we're all looking for. So it sounds like a win-win-win for everybody. First things first, viewers, if you have any questions, we're going to cover a lot of stuff today. So if you have any questions during the presentation, you can email us at info@learnairbnb.com and we'll get the questions answered for you at the end. There's a Q&A, so that can be about 15 to 20 minutes. The email is on the screen for you guys to get in contact with us throughout the webinar. So over the past few months, we were able to watch the explosive growth of Airbnb, and there were so many pricing tools out there. And the one that really caught our eye was Everbooked. And they were one of the first ones on the market, and their Airbnb pricing experience is extravagant. They handle millions of dollars of Airbnb bookings every month, and they're here to teach you how to earn more revenue with your unit. Without further delay, I'd like to invite Doug Ross from Everbooked.com. Doug, are you there?
I am, Jim.
All right, great. So without further ado, Doug, please take us away, introduce us to the automated pricing tool, and explain why every host should be using Everbooked.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate the intro. Also have appreciated getting to know you and work with you over these past many months. Also, thank you for the opportunity and the honor to present today to your audience. Much appreciated. Jim also wanted to mention that we will have a special offer at the end of the presentation today that we'll offer to any new people that would like to sign up for Everbooked. So stay tuned for that. So let's get right into what Everbooked can do and some data behind it, and also importantly answering questions that you have. I first just wanted to provide a thought for the day. Price is only ever an issue in the absence of value. So if you think of anything you're buying or selling, usually the objection is around value, not so much price. I wanted also to say that I am representing the entire team, Everbooked. You can see some of the mug shots here. Great looking group, a strong team, and the important thing is that we cover skills. We're in engineering heavy. We've got financial modeling in our background, data science in our portfolio of skills, as well as design and back-end engineering. This team also that you see here has been working together for some time. We started Everbooked last summer, but the relationships go deeper than that. So the flow for today, we'll get into some demand data insights. I'm going to use the city of San Francisco as an example only. We see similar things in other cities. I will talk about Everbooked, give you an overview of the features and so on, as well as what it looks like to be an Everbooked client managing your listing or listings. And I'll answer some questions in a Q&A form at the end, and others will be answered hopefully through the presentation. So welcome everyone again today. I mentioned that we'll use the city by the bay and the area to illustrate some of the demand changes that you can see at a local level. We'll just dive into this right now. And if you look here, this is a picture of the hotel situation in San Francisco, and you can see that from a big picture perspective, hotels definitely know something about pricing. We can learn some of their methods, and in fact, that is exactly what Everbooked does and brings it to you, the quote-unquote little guy, in a very cost-effective package. So what you see here is rising average daily rates over the years. Not sure if you can follow my cursor too well, but as occupancy rises, which is the line on the top bar, you see that prices increase generally as well. Currently, the average price is just over $200 for a hotel room in the city of San Francisco. The other thing to notice is as occupancy rates rise near 80% or so, that prices increase fairly steeply there as they get close to their capacity. I'm going to show you the picture for for Airbnbs, and here we're looking at an overall occupancy rate in the green line here. You can see it's a lot lower if you take all of the Airbnbs in the city, including active hosts, less active hosts, and so forth. It's actually around 30%, but you see the same relationship between price and occupancy. So as occupancy rises, so does price. The average price for an Airbnb in the city of San Francisco is close to that of a hotel room right now, but probably a lot of those Airbnbs are offering a whole lot more. They may sleep more people and so on. So average occupancy is around 30%, but you guys, I'm sure the webinar audience today are not your average host. If we look here at this Rorschach test display of San Francisco, what we're showing is occupancy rate. So if you've got a blue dot, you're sort of below 25%. And if you're up toward the red, you'd be at 100%. And the sweet spot really is the orange area. That's around 75, 80%. And that's really what we want you to be, is an orange dot kind of host, and Everbooked has been designed to help you get there. So that's a shot. There are about 6,000 Airbnbs in that city. So now I'm going to talk just about a couple of neighborhoods there. Again, not to show you specifics on San Francisco, because many of you will be in other parts of the US and the world today that are listening, but just to show you that demand can change for neighborhoods even within the same city. The Embarcadero North Beach area is a more upscale area and has more tourists coming there, arguably, than the Mission Bernal Heights sort of hip area of San Francisco. And I'm going to show you what some of the demand looks like, or the demand patterns look like at the local level for those two neighborhoods. So here we are again. The Embarcadero is the sort of the tourist upscale area, and what we're showing you here is the change in demand relative to an index of 0 over the course of the year. You can see a swing there, minus to plus, of 40% or so, which is really a huge variation in demand over the year, and is something that you want to be adjusting your prices to take advantage of. You'll see in the Mission area a similar shape overall to the demand curve, but the swings are much less significant in the Mission area. So that data, this is the type of data that we collect and then apply to your listing. It is based on hotel data, Airbnb, as well as general travel data to produce this type of information. I'm going to show you that now on a day of week basis. So again, at the hyper-local area, neighborhoods in this case, Everbooked can help you capture this data and apply it. So here we have the same neighborhood on the bottom right, Mission Bernal Heights, showing a swing from Tuesday to Saturday on the neighborhood of 30% difference. And this is taken from best practices of what hosts are doing, successful hosts are doing in that neighborhood. To contrast that with Berkeley, which is in the East Bay, a much less pronounced, although still a difference between the low part of the week and the weekend. So you should be pricing to take advantage of these opportunities. Other important factors that affect pricing, well known, are events. So, events don't occur all that often. It might be something like 3% of all nights in a given year. However, they can provide good pricing opportunities on the upside, assuming supply doesn't rush in, and also assuming, and this is the kind of thing that we parse through for you, that people are coming to the city, and that event is not just drawing people that already live in the city. So we look at event data, and then the other factor that we bring into play are unbooked nights. So these are nights on your calendar that are coming up soon and that are unbooked. We will start to lower your price toward a minimum to capture more bookings. And more bookings are good. Why? A, because you're still making money. B, because more bookings leads to more reviews and higher search ranks and so on. Just as by way of taking a short break here, I'll tell you a little story about one of my sons. I have 3 sons, and when one of them was 5, he put a Kool-Aid stand out by the street on a Saturday morning and was selling his Kool-Aid for 50 cents. And I went out later in the morning and I noticed that he had dropped his price to 0. And I thought, why did you do that? So I asked him why he dropped his price to 0, and he said, well, Dad, I'll sell more. So hopefully you're laughing there wherever you are in your living room, but it's a story that really illustrates that lowering your prices makes sense, but obviously you don't want to go too extreme. So we talked about a number of factors that are relevant for demand, and at the hyperlocal level, the question then is, what are hosts actually doing in a city, a representative city like San Francisco? Let's take a look at the prices set. So these are number of prices set on the horizontal axis, and this is percent of listings on the vertical axis here now. And what you see here is that the vast majority of hosts are setting only 4 prices. This is throughout a long span of time, like let's say a year. This is actually 18 months. Only 4 prices being set for their listing, despite all of that variation in demand that I just showed you in the previous data slides. So where do you want to be? You want to be here in the money zone. That is where you are adjusting, or Everbooked is adjusting on your behalf to match changes in demand. So that's it on the data. I'm going to talk now about Everbooked, a little bit about the product, and then I'm going to take you into a demo as well so you can see what it's like to actually be a client of Everbooked managing your listing. So what we do, quite simply, is we monitor demand and we automatically price your space. So once you get set up, we automatically price your space on a nightly basis. So what are we? Once we take this data, we have a pricing engine that first gathers data, millions upon millions of points of data on a daily basis. If you look at the city of San Francisco, just as an example, we put a geopin down in 28 virtual locations, and we're extracting data from all of those places. We then take that data, we analyze it, we organize it, we come up with our prediction on prices, and that's how we come up with an Everbooked price for you, which then is translated seamlessly to your Airbnb calendar. So we've got this great pricing engine that's working on behalf of our clients. So really, that's the main thing, is that Everbooked does the work for you. We're constantly monitoring that data, as I mentioned to you, but what is the data that we're monitoring? It's hotel, it's Airbnb, it's general travel data. We have information on day of week demand patterns, events, and your own listings data. So that's, for example, if you have that Unbooked night coming up soon, we have that. So very simple concept here. When demand is high, we raise your prices. When demand is low, we lower your prices. And I'm going to show you what our prices are raised relative to. It's your average price. So we'll talk about that not too far down the road here. So key features of Everbooked and what they mean for you. So automatic nightly pricing, I mentioned already, we are doing the legwork for you. You could do this on your own, but you're probably not going to capture as much data, and it's a whole lot of work. We do automatic calendar syncing, so there's no need for you to transcribe from your Everbooked calendar to your Airbnb calendar. We allow you to manage multiple listings, whether that's within the same property or not, which really gives you that sort of at-a-click management convenience. We also allow you to set a custom price range. Again, I'm going to show you more of this in a moment. The reason we do this, though, is not only are you unique, but your goals are unique and so on, but also your listing is unique. One of the other things that we allow is an override capability. So if there's a particular day, let's say that you don't like the Everbooked suggested price, maybe you have some insights as to something that's happening there that could change that price higher or lower, or there's a reason you want to lower it, maybe a friend or a cousin or something's coming in. We allow you to stay in control and override any particular price. I'll show you that later, show you all of these things later. And then finally, data transparency. So we will show you how we came up with your price. Was it seasonality? Was it day of week? And so on. So that's essentially the package of features you get with Everbooked. We've had a lot of questions that come up with our clients, and I thought I would just hit some of these now, sort of take them one by one here, just so that you have quick answers. So does Everbooked, or do Everbooked prices impact the base price or fees displayed on my Airbnb page? So the answer to that is no, we don't affect those items. Can I use Everbooked with weekend, weekly, or monthly prices? Yes, you can. However, we set nightly prices. So to get the most out of Everbooked, we recommend that you fully open your Airbnb calendar to nightly prices. What about with minimum days set? Yes, you can absolutely use Everbooked. Let's say you have minimum days set to 2 or 3 or some other number. You can absolutely use Everbooked in that context. Can I use Everbooked with Airbnb's pricing tips? Yes, you can use Everbooked with Airbnb's current or the new pricing tips that some people have access to. The reason you can do that is because Airbnb's pricing tips are informational in nature, so you're getting more information and you can work with that information. It's not an automated system. So does using Everbooked improve my search results with Airbnb? We get this quite a bit as well, or general questions around improving my search results. The answer is yes. Airbnb's search algorithm seems to favor active hosts. So if you have your calendar being updated daily, you will be perceived as a more active host. And how much does Everbooked cost? So after a free trial, we charge 1% of your gross Airbnb bookings. So our interests are aligned with yours. We only make money when you make money. If you make more money, which is really the value proposition for Everbooked, we make more money too. So our interests are aligned with yours, I should say. So I will go through a demo now and talk about how to come up with some of the price settings for Everbooked, which you'll see here in a moment. But first, just to let you know, how do you actually get started with Everbooked? It's really simple. Just a few clicks, you set up an Everbooked account. This is what the screen would look like. You then link your Airbnb account to your Everbooked account, and we automatically bring your listings from Airbnb into the Everbooked dashboard, and you can decide which ones you would like to automate. This is what a listings page in Everbooked looks like. So we are using, for this example, listings in San Francisco. Keith is a client and a friend of Everbook's. He has a classic sort of Victorian home in the Haight-Ashbury area of San Francisco. And what Keith has done, as many hosts do, is he's created a number of separate listings all within that same address in San Francisco. So here's the listings page. You see at a glance, first of all, whether or not the listings are being updated. So the top left one, you can see it is being updated to Airbnb automatically. You also have information here around the average price that you have set and the Everbooked prices that are being recommended there, and you can turn on and off our synchronization. We also provide you some summary data across all of your listings and an activity log and so on. The other thing that we do is we have, and I'll just draw your attention to the red sort of oval at the bottom right, we do provide a on our site, a site chat feature, so that you can, if we are live, you can talk to us, or you can leave us a message there, and we'll help you with any concerns you may have or questions. So now if we clicked on one of these listings, let's say stunning views with private half bath, we would be taken to a screen that looks like this. This is where you set your price range for that particular listing. I'll draw your attention to the semicircle on the bottom left. Here we have an average price set at $165. You also set your minimum price at the bottom left, and you can set a maximum price. And I'm going to talk about these in more details. But you may remember I was saying before that you have the ability to customize Everbooked to your situation. Well, this is really what we mean here, is you're customizing your price range, and then we are going to vary your prices around the average price as demand changes. On the right side, near the bottom, is a control panel where you turn Airbnb on or off. We tell you when it was last updated. When I took this screenshot, it had been updated 23 hours prior. And then you've got this blue dog chasing its tail button that will allow you to manually trigger a sync for your listing. So I'll come back to what it looks like to be an Everbooked client, but let me talk about how you come up with these prices in the first place. So, one moment, please. So, determining your Everbooked price range. These are the things that you would be doing. So, determine your average price. I wanted to define that for people so that it's clear. Your average price is essentially the average of your high and low season price. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Your minimum price would be your minimally acceptable price. Now, what the suggestion is here, again, based on working with the hundreds of clients that we have, is to double your gut discount. The reason I say that is most people keep their minimum price a little bit too high. If you set it a little lower where you're still making profit, you're going to have a much better chance of capturing those sort of late bookings, let's say, or close to last minute bookings. So that's really important. On the minimum price side of things, it's obviously personal choice, but you need to look at it also from a business perspective and set your minimum price accordingly. Regarding your maximum price, infinity -1 might be a good idea, and I'll kind of credit Keith with that. A lot of people actually keep their maximum price just blank. They don't enter anything there. You can, of course, set to your comfort level accordingly. And then the other thing that you would do would be to adjust for reviews. So if you are a new host, and I know this slide doesn't say it here in point number 4, but if you're a new host, you're just getting started, you would probably want to set your overall prices about 15 to 20% of a discount to top listings. And why is that important? They have higher search results than you do. You need to start gaining bookings, gaining reviews, doing all the good things that a good host does, like being responsive and so on, to get yourself closer in terms of the search results when you can start to increase your prices. Now, all of this is sort of set within your own context and your own goals. So, for example, your own occupancy goals. Now, I mentioned on that average price, how do you get that? If you have been a host for a while, use your own booking data. So take a look at your high season and find a price that you set where you were getting bookings at that desired level. Do the same for the low season and take an average of those two numbers. So that's if you have booking data already, like let's say a year worth of data on that particular listing. If you don't, and actually, even if you are an experienced host, it's always a good idea to take a look at market data. So look at comparable Airbnbs, and again, don't just look at the price that they have right now, but look at their high season and low season, and also price for booked properties. So in other words, it doesn't mean much if somebody has a listing priced at $200 and is getting no bookings. The market is saying that that's overpriced. So find some booked properties that are similar to yours and take an average for them. You can also do this with hotels. So choose an appropriate hotel to whatever your listing is, whether that's a mid-level hotel, higher level, or sort of the lower level. Depends on what your listing is, and you can easily do an Expedia search, hotels.com, and get an average of high and low season prices. So this is some ideas that you can use. You can also use any other informational data that's out there to come up with a high and low season market price and pick your average based on that. So coming back to some of that market data, what do you do for comps? Just showing a pretty simple example for Keith's place. This is a search done on Airbnb, which you can do yourself very easily. I'll explain how to do that. We can help you do this and do this in a sort of more efficient way for anyone who wants to sign up to Everbooked. We can help you with this. So for Keith's place in Airbnb, and they have a pretty good search function. Quite simply, you pick the city, you pick the room type, in this case a private room. You can go down to more filters, and one of the important ones here would be neighborhoods. So Keith is in the Haight-Ashbury area, so I selected that when doing this search, and you see that 46 comps come up for Keith's place here. You can click on any of these places on the map and take a closer look at those comps. So when you do that, what are you trying to do? Not all comps will truly be comps based on a search like that. There, some of the number of people it sleeps could change. It might not be that close to you. It might not have a similar look and feel. There are a lot of things, amenities and so on. But find at least one, ideally, many more than one, but at least one good comp to your place, and check that one out a little bit further. So here's a good comp for Keith. You can see the sort of advertised price on Airbnb, but if you were to click here on the calendar, what you'd really be looking at would be, is this place booking at $149, and what are the actual prices for this particular comp? So let's go back now to the calendar view for Everbooked, and again, using Keith's place as an example, I want to show you a little bit more information. So what we just ran through was how do you come up with your price range in Everbooked. So you have that. Once you're managing this listing, you have the immediate month's calendar, and we would refer to this as the Everbooked prices or the Everbooked calendar prices, and you have a lot of information here. So check days have been booked. Days here, the darker colors in blue indicate higher demand days, and you see what the recommended Everbooked prices are here. I'm looking from the 17th across to the 22nd, and one of the things that you'll see right away there is that there is a day of week increase as we go through that particular week. That's the sort of thing that we would recommend for you. On any given day, in this case May 22nd, if we look over on the right-hand panel, you see information for that day. And I had mentioned earlier about data transparency. So how did we come up with $173 as a recommendation for May 22nd for Keith? Well, we started with the average price, which is the $165 in the orange semicircle on the top left. We churned all of that data that I mentioned to you before as in our pricing engine, and here are the results of those factors that net out to $173 for that particular day. So a reduction in price because there's only 10 days until that date comes, at least when I did this screenshot. Plus 7 days for the day of week, it's a Friday. You can see an increase in price because some Airbnbs are booked, so up $10 for that and up 20 for higher seasonal demand. We take all of those things and your average price and give you a recommended price here of $173 for that day. The other thing you can do, if you don't like that pricing recommendation for some reason, you just highlight it and you can override that particular recommendation for that day. And then you will get a padlock icon here. So I'll show you a comparison of 2 calendar dates just so you can see more information that we provide you if you were an Everbooked client. So we're comparing 2 days, one in May on the left, the 29th, and one in October. You see here what I already went through with you, top left, and that is days to all of the factors and how that breaks out. Now you see also here a map on the left that you would have access to as well. This is showing you, first of all, your place. Again, I'm left-hand panel and my cursor is pointing to where Keith's place would be, that little Everbooked looking icon on that map. The blue house icons are available Airbnbs around for that date, and the red ones are booked Airbnbs for that date. If we contrast that to October, you're getting similar information up here. There's just a couple things that don't come into play. So October 29th is far away, so we're not giving you any reduction towards your minimum because it's a near-term opening. And again, you see what the map looks like, and not surprisingly, there are many more Airbnbs available since that date is fairly far out. So those are the types of things that you see. We price at a minimum of 6 months and out to 1 year for you when you sign up to Everbooked. So finally, just to show you how this works, all of these days that are in your Everbooked calendar, when an update occurs, these prices, your Everbooked calendar prices, are transposed to your Airbnb calendar. So drawing your attention to May 22nd in the red circle, if we then look at a snapshot of Keith's Airbnb listing for that day, you'll notice May 22nd is also 173. So that matches what we had here, as would all of those other dates for Keith in his calendar. Okay, so that's all of the Everbooked pricing and how it works. I hope I've given you a flavor for that, how to set your price range, and so on. One other thing that I want to mention is, what do you do about your Airbnb base price? So what we recommend is that you price it low enough to appear in more search results. So in this case, 145 is it's actually the minimum that Keith had set in his Everbooked price range. So we would recommend you set it at your minimum or slightly above that, and then Everbooked will keep up the work on your nightly pricing for you. So that's a recommendation there, and really part of that is to ensure that you show up in front of more eyeballs that are searching for a place on Airbnb. So how do you know if your price is right? And we've seen this pattern as well. I'm actually going to credit Jim and Learn Airbnb, his blog, these actual figures, but we see this as well. So if you've started with Everbooked and you're looking at your pricing, and you're kind of asking yourself, do I have my price range set? Are these prices correct? Well, if you're mostly booked 2 to 4 weeks out, your price is right. If you're about half booked and you're 4 to 8 weeks out, you're probably priced about right. So the converse to these scenarios would also occur. If you're fully booked between now and the next 2 months at a given price level, you're pricing too low. And the opposite is also true. Okay, so Everbooked. We've got you covered in the US. These are some main metro areas that we are in. We are in every major metro area. We are in more than 2,700 cities in the US right now, so chances are we've got you covered if you are an Airbnb host in the US. As Jim mentioned, we're pricing more than $2 million per month as of our latest figures mid this month. So remember, price is only ever an issue in the absence of value. That's the main part of the presentation. We're going to move to some questions now, which I'm happy to take.
Great, Doug. Thank you so very much. There was a lot of awesome data and a lot of insight you gave us into the actual automated pricing tool of Everbooked. And it's pretty powerful and it seems pretty easy to use. So I'm pretty sure that that will be on the top of many hosts' lists to add to their Airbnb listing. So we're going to go over a few questions that I have that came up in my mind, and then we're also going to go over any audience questions. So audience members, if you do have any questions, please send them over to info@learnairbnb.com. We'll make sure that these get answered for you. All right. And if you're watching a replay as well, please send your questions over to us. We'll make sure those get answered too. So Doug, again, could you please just recap what are the top 3 things of why Everbooked is the best automated pricing tool for Airbnb hosts?
Sure, Jim. Well, it comes down really to the data. The data that we collect, the more, the better the data, the broader the data collected leads to the ability to create a better algorithm and ultimately to better pricing recommendations. So I would say that that would be the main differentiator for us. I think apart from that, I tried to share with you, we've got a very strong team here that's covering the key skills of price modeling and design, data science, and so forth, as well as the engineering skills that we have over and above.
Great. And it makes good sense. So what are the type of places that Everbooked has the most data? Is it mostly in urban areas, or does it work if I'm not in the downtown San Francisco region? If I'm in the middle, say a suburb that's maybe 20 miles out from San Francisco, is this still a powerful tool for me to use?
The answer to that is yes, Jim. It's still a powerful tool. It is generally true that we have a more comprehensive data set when you are in an urban area. So for example, we look at Airbnb data, there's a tighter density of Airbnbs in urban areas, so we have more of that particular data factor information. But wherever you are in our covered area, we're going to be able to bring in general travel data. We'll bring in our hotel data. We'll still bring in whatever Airbnb data that we have as well. And don't forget, we handle that sort of near-term available night situation. So if you bring Everbooked on board and you're in Tuktoyaktuk, we're going to lower your prices toward the minimum to help you get those bookings, get those reviews, and so forth, no matter where you are.
Hey, that's perfect. Good. So it's useful for everybody in a lot of different DMAs, and no matter how far they are from the actual epicenter of the city.
Yes.
Cool. Good. So this is an automated pricing tool. How much time does this actually save an Airbnb host?
Great question, Jim. The quick answer is it can save a lot. It really depends on what you're doing as a host. We know that it varies. Our clients, some of them literally set this and forget this. So they're really they love the fact that it's automated and they can, focus on other things. Then we have clients that are on the opposite end of the scale. They are spending, half an hour a day easily, and that adds up. So you take an hour a day as a case, that's 30 hours a month. You've got to ask yourself, what is your time worth? That's a question there. So if someone is trying to do this on their own now, they can definitely do it, but they're going to be spending a good chunk of time to do it comprehensively and to do it on an ongoing basis as well, Jim.
Wow, so you could be saving about 30 hours a month and putting that really into growing your business instead of just doing the stuff that the automated pricing tool can do for you.
Well, I think that's really what it is. This is an opportunity to outsource to a smarter pricing partner, as it were.
Makes sense. So one thing that we've had feedback on and that we've seen is that some hosts get feedback from their guests, and they get upset. The guests get upset that their prices keep going up and down, and they're different from day to day. So, what do you tell your hosts if this becomes something that is an issue for them?
That's a good question, Jim. What we have had is people that are coming to us have asked that question more than our existing hosts and clients have. And so it's in some ways a kind of a concern that's being expressed before jumping onto Everbooked, more so than a reality after the fact. The other thing that happens is, for most people that are guests on Airbnb, they are doing a search for a specific date range. So they're doing that, and they're looking at a compiled price from Airbnb that puts all of the nights together, plus the fees, from Airbnb and the cleaning fees and so on. And they're deciding somewhat based on that. So it really has not been a huge concern out there. I think part of the backdrop to this, Jim, is that people are becoming more and more accustomed to seeing prices in their general lives that are tied to some sort of demand-based system. Like when you go on airlines, if you're a golfer and you go golfing in a place that's really hot, you pay more in the morning when it's cool than you do in the afternoon, and so on.
Makes sense. That's good advice. So I have a question that came in from Natalia, and she has 7 Airbnb listings. And can she use Everbooked for just some of them, or does it have to be all of them? Do you have to put like every one of my listings on there, and do you have to manage every one, or can I choose which ones that you manage for me?
Well, yes, the answer to that is that yes, you have the control. And that's really what we want to give you. We want to make it easy for you to manage multiple listings. So we put them all in one sort of summary page, and then you get to choose whether to update to Airbnb or not. So you can set that on or not set it on. It's really at your discretion.
All right, great. So you can choose exactly which listings Everbooked actually automates for you.
Absolutely. So we find a mix of our clients. Some have, 4 listings and they're using it on 2. Some use it on all. Some use it on just 1. And many of our clients find that they like the control, I think, Jim.
That makes sense. And I think as a host as well, that I like having that control as well. It's something that sometimes your business and your market area a little bit better than anybody else. So it's good to have that power in your hands. I just want to see, is Everbooked able to work with different services like FlipKey and TripAdvisor yet?
Right now we're focused on Airbnb. That is in our not too distant roadmap, though, to allow connectivity with those other platforms you just mentioned, Jim.
Great. All right. So that's a good plus coming up for us. And then another pricing tool we talked about a couple weeks ago had suggested that it's important to not have a minimum booking stay. So I think you touched on this earlier, but I want to reiterate it. Can Everbooked work well with hosts that have a minimum booking stay of, say, 2 or 3 days or 4 days?
Absolutely, yes. It absolutely works with that, and in conjunction with a minimum day set beyond, obviously 2 or more. So yes, it definitely works in that way, Jim.
All right, cool. And then
I think maybe part of the question there, I'm not too sure, but part of a host's objectives may be to try and get more bookings, or maybe they just want to manage actually fewer bookings and fewer turnover. So I think the main thing is that depending on your situation, it's going to work for you very well, regardless of minimum days set.
Great. So it's a pretty flexible tool, and most hosts find an option within that they are happy with. So that's good to know that Everbooked is pretty flexible for all types of hosts. Another thing I want to know, just like, all right, what does it cost? I know you hit on this earlier, but maybe people have not, they joined a little bit later. What does it cost for automatic pricing, and can I try it before I actually pay for it?
So we charge 1% of your gross bookings. So really the way to think of this is aligning of interest. So it's a sort of, if you are making money, only if you're making money. So there might be times when a host has, no bookings in a given month. That could occur, right? You're in town, you're not leaving town, your listing's not available. We won't charge you anything. But let's take the next month and you have, let's say, 5 nights booked or 10 nights booked. Yeah, it's 1% of those bookings. So to put that into context, Jim, if we make you, let's say we make you a 20% increase in revenue over the course of a year compared to what you would have had if you had done this on your own without Everbooked, that is a 20x return on investment, and 10 times is 10x. So it can really be a good money maker for you. The other part of your question was whether you could try Everbooked before diving into it. And yes, we have a free trial that covers that, Jim.
Great. So it's easy to get started, and it's priced very fairly from what you're saying. So that's good. And then earlier you told us that there's going to be something special for the people that are watching, and they've been waiting very patiently. So what do you have for the viewers today?
Well, speaking of that free trial for Learn Airbnb viewers that are live with us now, rather than our normal 1-month free trial period, we're offering 3 times that, so 90 days. So that's one thing, Jim, and we're going to sweeten the pie a little bit more for new signups to Everbooked from today. We will also provide a consultation with these folks that will take a look at their listing, help them if you need to look at, for example, comparable Airbnb properties. I alluded to our ability to do that a little more efficiently than what I showed here today. So both of those things combined, Jim, make up the offer.
Wow, that's a pretty substantial offer, and I hope a lot of the hosts take you up on that. I mean, getting a free consultation, for any business is really good, especially for an Airbnb, where some hosts really don't know where to start with the pricing. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jim. I did just want to pick up on that just for one moment. So we're going to offer that to the end of this month. So that's next Friday, the 29th. That's the idea there. And also, we may not be able to do it just right away with everybody. We've really been slammed with new signups lately, Jim. But we'll set up an appointment for anybody who's interested in doing that.
Yeah, first come, first serve. So hosts, they better get on top of getting in contact with you, and we'll have a contact slide coming up in the next few minutes here. We have another question from Alessandra. She says, how does Everbooked compare to Airbnb, or how does Everbooked compare with Airbnb's own dynamic pricing tool and suggestions? She says she's looked at the suggested rates, and they're very different. So why is the Airbnb the pricing that they suggest so erratic? And can you work with those pricing rates? Like if, say, a client, our host has a listing and they're getting these pricing suggestions, because I know that not all hosts are getting them, can Everbooked work in conjunction with that?
Yeah, so there's a lot in that particular question, Jim, but you can work with that. That's an informational service that Airbnb is bringing out on a limited basis or a test basis with some of its clients. One of the first differences between that and Everbooked is that Everbooked is an automated service. So once you set our price range, we automatically update your calendar. Airbnb's pricing tips tool will give you information, and then you decide whether or not that price is acceptable, or those series of prices are acceptable. Other differences, and just remind me, Jim, if I'm missing parts of that question, but other differences are the data set. So Airbnb is looking at its own data set, so it looks within the Airbnb platform as much as we know about it, whereas we look at Airbnb data and we look at external data, as I'd mentioned before, hotel data, for example, general travel demand index data, events, and so on. So the data set is different as well. That would be part of the reason our pricing recommendations would differ from what Airbnb is suggesting. The other reason our pricing suggestions are different is because of the customizable price range that I spoke to in this webinar with Everbooked. Depending on how you set your average price, that's going to affect what the recommended Everbooked calendar prices are that you get as well. So that's another reason why those prices could be a little bit a little bit different, Jim. So, you know, and I think just the final thing is that how do you work with these two things together? You know, you can look at the Airbnb pricing tips, the enhanced pricing tips, take a look at what they're suggesting, and you know, maybe there's an insight there. If you think there is for a given day, you know, in your Everbooked dashboard, you can override a particular day. Just plug that in for that date, and that'll be it. When you're an Everbooked client, I should emphasize, you make all of your pricing decisions in your Everbooked account, and those get automated up to Airbnb. So you can use it on an informational basis.
Great. So it's a suggested to use them in tandem, but also make sure you have the automated pricing with Everbooked on, so that you're not missing out on any of the things. You know, you don't have to keep checking what the suggested prices are with Airbnb's testing tool they have right now.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, you can work in tandem. You can also make a decision as a host. You can say, well, look, you know, I like the features and the data set and everything else that Everbooked is offering. I'm just going to use that, and you're fine. So, you know, with or without Airbnb's pricing tips is how I would put it to your audience, Jim.
That makes much more sense, yeah, because it's not everywhere. Or Airbnb's suggested pricing is not everywhere, but it makes sense, yeah. All right, I don't see any more questions coming in, so let me move to the next slide that I have. And that would be just to thank everybody for attending today. And I want to put on the offer as well. You know, mention the Learn Airbnb. You know, you can get in contact with us at info@learnairbnb.com. If you have any questions for any replays, just send us some questions. We'll get those answered for you. And to take advantage of the very generous offer that Doug has given the hosts that are watching today, mention the Learn Airbnb webinar and get a free consultation. As he said, it's first come, first served, and they're getting filled up very quickly. And you also get an extended free trial with Everbooked. So please take advantage of that, everybody. And if there's nothing else, let me just check any of the little mediums here we have for new questions and see if anything else has come in. I do not see any more questions. So to the viewers, thank you very much for attending. Doug, thank you very much for sharing a lot of your automated pricing knowledge and sharing the Everbooked tool with us. And everybody, we're here to help, so get in contact with us and Everbooked. Thank you for joining, and everyone have a great day.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks again, Jim.